Welcome to the Praying and Slaying Podcast, a Light the Fire Outdoors production, where meatheads Aaron and John take you through a day in the life of the praying and slaying lifestyle. Without further ado, here's the next episode of the Praying and Slaying Podcast. What's up, Praying and Slaying Podcast listeners? This is A-Aron coming at you with another podcast from the Praying and Slaying series, a Light the Fire Outdoors production. Today, got a little bit different format. We're trying out some new things here, and another solo contribution coming at you from yours truly. And a lot of things been going on, a lot of things been reflecting on, and it's our favorite time of the year. It is officially hunting season. So we've been out doing all kinds of hunting, bow hunting, upland bird hunting. Rifle season's opened up for antelope a while back, which is actually the core message of this podcast. And rifle season actually just opened this past weekend here for elk and deer here in Montana. So that's been super exciting. Got the little lady out after some mule deer this last weekend. No luck, but hey, you know what? That's how it goes. It's hunting. We're going to keep grinding on that wheel and get her first buck hopefully this year. She's aiming at a mule deer buck, so we're going to see if we can't make that happen. But yeah, so it's been, hope everybody's been doing well. We got the election coming up. That's obviously exciting and stressful at the same time. Don't get too stressed, and remember that the Bible tells us, that there isn't a leader put in place in this world that doesn't have, that God didn't put there. So rest assured on that. And anyway, go out and do your due diligence, cast your vote, and make sure you're a part of it. If you have an opinion on it, you should be out there voting on it, and that's the best we can do. So that's been exciting. Hopefully this year's wrapping up good for you. Everybody's out there. It's hunting time and blowing some steam off that way, getting out in the tree stand, which is my favorite place to reflect and just get quiet, something we don't do too much of anymore. But yeah, so part of what I want to get into today is antelope season, man. It very quickly became my favorite animal to eat, and quite possibly my favorite animal to chase. It's just a different animal. I've wanted to shoot an antelope since I was a little kid, watching the hunting channel. A lot of guys set their sights on the big animals like your grizzly bears, moose, caribou. Elk is a huge one for most people that's on their bucket list. But for whatever reason, I always had a dream of shooting an antelope. I'm not really sure why. I really got excited watching, antelope being shot over water holes, out of a ground blind or whatever. Some of the most memorable TV shows I have logged in my brain are all antelope. So anyway, I got out after my first one last year in Wyoming, and that was an awesome experience. Got to go down there with some good buddies, some veterans of the Army. As sad as that might be that they were in the Army, I have to plug that. It's a requirement as an Air Force vet myself. You have to plug a shameless poke at any other branch that's out there. And anyway, my buddy Justin Wilson invited me down. He was kind enough to invite me down with his group last year to get on my first antelope. Drew a doe tag and was lucky enough to go down there and smoke one at 315 yards, my 270. Still working on putting the video together on that. Check it out at lightthefireoutdoors.com. Going to be putting that one up, and then getting into today, you're going to hear a story about another video you'll see on lightthefireoutdoors.com. So more to come on that. But anyway, antelope, they're such an awesome animal. They're just totally different than anything I've ever hunted before. And, you get out and, moving here to Montana totally changed the way that I, thought about hunting. I grew up in the Midwest in Iowa, moved to the East Coast for a few years via the Air Force, and a lot of just sitting still hunting. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a totally different style. You're sitting up in a tree stand, basically waiting for something to walk by. Hopefully you put yourself in the right place. Fast forward all the way till a few years ago, and now we're here in Montana, and hunting totally changed. You're out there, you're chasing the animal down, you're spotting it from way off. And antelope's no different. Antelope have some of the best eyesight out of any mammal species that's out there, so that's totally different than anything else. They basically rely on their eyes, and they live in flat, wide open country. It's super tough to get to. Did a little bit of bow hunting here in Montana last year, and that was an extremely humbling experience. Had a few close calls, but ultimately couldn't get it done. And, antelope's eyesight is something that's super hard to fool. So just a different animal. It turns into more of a long-range game, getting close enough for your rifle to do the job, not so much getting close enough for you to do the job. And I got an antelope doe, like I said, 315 yards down there with my buddy Justin. That was awesome. And very, very quickly found out that it is one of the best wild game meats that you can possibly get. We just started a new Facebook page actually called Wild Game Nation. Go check that out on Facebook. Basically a community for people to share wild game recipes, wild game stories, and just their love for harvesting and putting food on their table. With the wild game opportunities that we have here in the States. We're extremely blessed to be able to hunt and do what we do here in the States. Basically, in all 50 states, you've got so many opportunities to get out there and put, food that you took from start to finish and put on your table. You know where it comes from. It's a pretty cool opportunity. So anyway, go check that out. But you're going to see a lot of antelope recipes from us coming up on there as well. And just the table fare from an antelope is absolutely phenomenal. My wife... I'll just say this. The first animal that I've ever had the opportunity to hunt and put meat in the freezer from, that she has 100% asked for every single week until that antelope was gone has been an antelope. So that tells you something. And she grew up with wild game and deer and all that good stuff. But man, I've never heard someone ask for something like antelope as much as she asked to have it for dinner. We did it for everything from tacos to roasts. Made some wild huckleberry, just kind of gourmet deer loin or antelope loin, and some all kinds of crazy stuff. But just amazing table fare, and I have had all kinds of family up here this year. In spite of COVID, it's been pretty awesome to be able to be blessed with people traveling and visiting and get to see our family, the in-laws, the nephews, and several of these people are traveling in and out of home here for us have had a chance to try antelope, and everybody's loved it. It's kind of a controversial meat, so to say. Down in Wyoming, I remember, basically last year's hunt kind of played out. I got down there on a Thursday. Everybody else had been hunting starting that previous Sunday, and I had to work, and we got minimal time off during that time of the year for us. It's the busy season at Tacticam. Obviously, if people are out hunting and playing, we're selling cameras to them to be able to share their hunts with. So I had to work and drove down there on a Thursday. Got down there just in time for it to start raining. So I camped out in my truck, woke up the next morning to a complete muddy mess down in this little ravine everybody was camped in. And, when you hear the stories of people getting stuck on roadways out in Montana or in Wyoming, they aren't lying. When it rains, that stuff turns to absolute gumbo. Your truck slips and slides worse than it ever could on snow or ice. And it's just a fact. It's crazy. It's very easy to get stuck. So basically spent the entire first part of that hunt towing everybody else out for whatever reason. My Dodge EcoDiesel, shameless plug here, did a great job pulling a few Chevys and Fords out, so that was awesome. Pulled some people's campers out, and had a good time doing that. Little nail biting at times, but we got her done. And anyway, we spent so I spent my second night down there, in a hotel. We drove down there, got dried off, got the trucks cleaned off, stayed in a hotel because it was just a lot safer instead of being stuck out there and stranded in some dirt roads. And anyway, you walk into a hotel with camouflage on, and they're going to ask you what you're hunting. Obviously we told them antelope, and I remember the lady at the desk goes, "Why would you want to eat those disgusting things?" And I'm like, "Are they that bad?" She says, "Yeah." She said, "Man," she's like, "I had one time, and it was absolutely gross." She said, "I know several people that think they taste just like sagebrush, yada, 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 yada. They're disgusting animals." So since then, I've had plenty of conversations, and it is, I feel like, a 50-50 split. You draw a line down the middle. People either love or they absolutely hate antelope. There's no gray area on it. So I was kind of curious, but anyway, I shot that doe, got her processed. We walked up to her, and the rest of the guys that were down there, my buddy Justin had to go home early, so I was hunting with some of his friends. And we get up to the antelope, and I'm just kind of having that in awe moment. First time I'd ever seen one that close. First antelope on the ground. Pretty awesome experience. And I remember one of the guys saying, "Okay, cool, you got her. Let's go ahead and keep going after the group. We got one more tag to fill." And I was like, "No, I think I should stay here. Let me go ahead and I'll take care of her. I'll get her, all quartered out and everything, put her in my backpack, and I'll hike her out to the road to the truck, and I can bring the truck around so that way it's halfway closer to us. You guys keep going. I'm going to stay here." And they kind of argued with me a little bit about it, but I was pretty adamant. Hey, you know what? I want to get this meat off the bone as fast as I can. Just take care of that meat and get it out to the truck where I know I've got a cooler full of ice waiting for it. So we did that. They ultimately agreed. They went off after the rest of them. I took care of my antelope, hiked her out about a mile to the truck. and put her on ice and drove the truck around, picked the guys up, and that was about the long and short of that hunt. But anyway, yeah, get home. That meat had a couple days to rest on the ice in the cooler, and holy smokes, man, there wasn't a single thing that we took off that antelope that wasn't absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it was just fantastic table fare. And anyway, I've done a little bit of research since then, and I think most of it actually comes from the concept that people just don't take care of that antelope fast enough. Most of the time when we're out there hunting antelope, especially during early archery season, you're killing that thing, when it's hot outside to you. You're sweating and working your butt off to get to it. It's hot out, and people just don't take care of the meat fast enough, I think, so it spoils. Antelope have a little bit higher body temperature than some things, and they've got a little bit different bacteria makeup in them as well. So that, those two factors contribute to the meat spoiling a lot faster than other animals. So you got to make sure you take care of it as fast as you possibly can. And we did that, and it reflected 100% in some of the best meat I've ever had. And this antelope lived in sage country, so if it was going to taste like sage, it would have tasted like sage, but it didn't. So anyway, I say all that to say, it's one of the first animals I've ever looked at while driving down the road that I actually look at thinking about how good it tastes more than I think about how fun it is to hunt. And so this year, I put in for tags for Wyoming to go with that group again. I put in for tags here in Montana, and I got extremely lucky, and I drew a buck tag here in Montana, and I also drew a doe tag here in Montana. So hopefully, everything works out and we can get 2 on the ground. But as of right now, we've got 1 on the ground. I'm going to tell you that story now. But part of what we're trying to do here at the Praying and Slaying podcast is, bring you guys faith via the outdoors and just our faith journey and just stories of encouragement. So that's what this is about today. And today's message is just about fellowship, like being part of a community, being in fellowship with other people, and how that adds to strength and accountability in our lives and just gets us through some of the tough times and everything else. But it's so important to be a part of some kind of a community, especially, people of faith. It's even more important to get through these tough trials and things like that, with people who are like-minded, people who can encourage you, people who can tell you you're wrong, people who can, keep you on that right path and just keep you straight. And that's what this hunting story is all about. So, this year, fast forward, like I said, I drew 2 antelope tags. So I've been hunting with a good buddy of mine, Dan. We've been out on all kinds of adventures this year so far. This is the first year I've been out on the opening day of a lot of the seasons: waterfowl, upland bird, antelope, and deer and elk, and just all kinds of things. I've never really been out opening day before. I've kind of avoided it, actually. But this year, Dan's a very adamant outdoorsman, and he's very apt to just get right after it, and he doesn't waste a lot of time. So we've been out opening day quite a few times together, gone on all kinds of adventures. We've gotten a few partridge together, got some ducks together, done plenty of elk and deer hunting with no luck, but we've put the time in for sure. Well, fast forward to antelope season, we both had buck tags, and we both drew for the same unit, actually, so it worked out really, really well. So, we get in the car the first day, and we're heading out to go. And he goes, all right, so you got any goals in mind for this? And I said, you know what? I said, if I got my first buck tag for an antelope, and I would love to shoot an antelope worth doing a shoulder mount and putting up on the wall for my first antelope buck. That would just be my goal. Now, I'll tell you a little bit of something about me, and if you didn't pick it up in the first few episodes of the Praying and Slaying podcast, when John was on, I'm not exactly a trophy hunter. So I'm a guy that likes to fill my tag, and I'm just as happy with the experience getting out there as I am with the size of the animal that I take. Now, that's not to say if I have a choice and I see a few bucks, or I'm going through some things or whatever, that I'll take the best animal I have an opportunity at. However, it's not going to stop me from filling a tag if I just get in that time where I'm like, I'm running out of season time, or I'm running out of daylight, or whatever. I'm going to fill that tag. So I've never been a trophy hunter, just to say that. I've killed my fair share of big bucks, killed several, smaller bucks and things when it comes to whitetails out of the Midwest, stuff like that. But man, it's more about the experience for me. So anyway, having never killed an antelope, you can imagine every single antelope we see that has halfway decent horns on its head looks really good to me. So we're going out there, and he goes, all right, man, well, we're going to kill a big one then. We'll get after it. And he said, I have a few ideas of where we can find some. So I'm like, all right. So we start driving around, and opening day for antelope is unlike anything I've really ever seen. And I don't know if it's unique to Montana or if it's anywhere that rifle season opens for antelope. But it was absolutely nuts. I've never seen more hunters. Anytime we saw an antelope, if you looked around in a 360-degree circle, you would find a hunter that was already going after it. It was absolutely nuts. And in some cases, we had multiple hunters going after the same antelope. So, side note, be safe if you're out there, guys. Make sure that, if there's an antelope that you're looking at, or anything for that matter that you're looking at, that you're going to go after and be shooting at, make sure no one else is going after it. I couldn't even count the number of times we saw, a father and son pair setting up on a hill, aiming at an antelope, and then we see someone else down lower or someone else up higher heading in to go after that same antelope. All you're doing is asking for trouble. Survey your surroundings. There's no reason, we need to be all out there chasing something. There's plenty of animals to be had. Get out there, take your time, survey your surroundings, and make a good choice. So anyway, I say that it was just a unique experience, but there was antelope everywhere. There's people everywhere. We were having a hard time finding antelope that weren't already being chased. But we basically drove through half of the unit that we had a tag for, and that's a very big unit. So we did a lot of driving that day, saw a lot of bucks, and we got out to get closer looks at several of them. And I was so glad that I had Dan with me, because I don't know how many that we got out to look at, that we started walking to just to get a little bit closer look, that ultimately we pulled the plug on because Dan was like, I think we can do better. I think we can do better. Having said that, I was looking at him like, if you weren't here, man, I would be 300 yards closer to this thing and probably lining up for a shot at this point. So anyway, we get out there and we're chasing antelope, and we have a heck of an opening weekend. We saw all kinds of animals. We saw some people shoot some animals, and we just never really quite saw what Dan would deem as an antelope. Now, Dan's hunted antelope a lot more than I have. He's got some great bucks on his wall that him and his wife have taken, and just really, really knows his stuff when it comes to antelope. So I was learning all kinds of stuff about what to look for with the animal's horns, how tall they should be, how far the forks should be over the ears, the curls on the antelope's horns when they curl back or curl into the inside or whatever. All those things add up to a scoreable antelope. Now, again, I'm not much about score, but it was great knowledge to have. When you're looking at something, you're really trying to compare between animals, it's a good thing to know what you're looking at. So anyway, that was opening weekend, and we wrapped things up. We went out duck hunting, I think, one day after that, and then we really didn't have a chance to get out again for a little bit. So fast forward about a week, and I was just itching to get out and go fill this antelope tag. Him and I had a couple opportunities, but the opportunities didn't really line up. And anyway, I ended up going out on my own on a Wednesday. I was looking at the clock, just waiting on work to get over. 4:30 my time is 5:30 office time. That's usually when the office closes. So I was just waiting for the seconds to kick down, and I couldn't wait anymore. I said, you know what? 4:30 struck. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go find an antelope today. So I buzzed out, got my rifle in the truck, got all the stuff I needed, and took off down the highway. And I just crossed over into the line of the hunting unit that I have using Onyx Maps. A great tool. If you don't use it, you definitely should, especially if you hunt in a western state. Shows you all the boundary lines of the units you have. You can break it down by season, because antelope units are different than deer and elk units, things like that. And it shows you private from public lands. So anyway, I've got the Onyx up. I've got it down on my charger. And I'm kind of glancing at it every once in a while once I know I'm getting close to that line. And I just passed the line of when my unit opens up. And I look in this pasture off to the left side of the road, and I see an antelope standing out there. So like, oh crap. So I look down at my Onyx really quick. Sure enough, it's state land. I see a field entrance coming up, so I slow down, pull into that field entrance, and get my binos out. I look up, and the first antelope I spotted was actually a really small buck, young buck, maybe a year old or so. And then behind him, I see two bucks with big horns on them. I'm like, oh man, this is sweet. So I kind of look at them a little bit more. Both those big bucks pick their head up, and I was like, yep, I'm definitely going after those. Those are big enough for me. So I took off, and I got all my stuff ready. I kind of kept the truck door between me and them so they couldn't really see what was going on. Well, they ended up dropping down behind this hill. Best case scenario, because that gave me time to run across the highway, get over the fence, and get towards them and use that hill as an advantage to get close enough to them. So we get out there. I get out there. I crest the first hill. I don't see them, so I'm like, great. So I hustle over that one, get down in the next ravine, and I start cresting the second hill, and I'm going really, really slow, and I get up, and all of a sudden I see horns down on the very bottom behind the hill I'm crawling up on the other side. So Antelope are right there, perfect. I mean, they're extremely close at this point, like within 100 or within 200, 250 yards or so. And so I get back down over the hill, and that's when I start getting the cameras out. I've got my Tacticams, obviously. We got this new spotting scope camera that I really wanted to get this hunt on. So I hook the spotting scope camera up. I make sure my 2 other cameras are on through the FTS, one filming through the scope, one facing me, one on the spotting scope, and I start crawling back over that hill. When I get over the hill, where I saw the first buck is now that small buck. And so I'm like, uh-oh, and he sees me as soon as I crest the hill. Bad case scenario, because again, antelope have such good eyesight that they use their eyes to their advantage and they use their speed to their advantage. They can run at extremely high speeds for long periods of time and never look back, and that's what they rely on. So I already was kind of panicked, so I threw my backpack up quick. I got the spotting scope on him and got the camera all straight. Then I get the gun on the backpack for my rest, and I start looking around. Well, then I saw where the 2 bigger bucks, they had actually gotten out ahead of him, and they started crawling up on the hill, and they for whatever reason, didn't know I was there yet. And they start watching this younger buck because he's getting antsy. He sees me, and they're looking at him like, dude, what's up? So anyway, I moved the camera on the spotting scope over, the spotter LR, get it on the 2 big bucks. I'm watching them through there. I get them lined up. I hit record, and then I get lined up for the shot. So the 2 bucks that were there, they were basically the same size. I would say they probably would have scored out the same, but one was a little taller than the other, and that's the one I wanted to shoot, was a taller one. Well, while I was watching this little buck and getting that camera oriented, they had actually crisscrossed. I didn't realize it, so I already knew where that bigger one was that I wanted to go after, and they switched positions. So when I got my eyes back in the scope, I'm looking at the lower antelope, which should have been the bigger one. I'm like, man, he looks shorter than I thought he was. So I'm spending a few seconds just kind of looking at him, trying to figure out which one's the bigger one. Well, that little one walked right into my field of view. He took one look at me, and he took off and bolted. So I, just kind of went into, I got to get this done now mode, pulled the gun up, and as soon as the crosshairs went where I wanted, I pulled the trigger. The antelope got hit, took off running, and that was the end of it. So anyway, just a really cool hunt. I was super pumped. My first antelope buck on the ground. You couldn't ask for more in a first hunt. I mean, this was just awesome. I was able to get within, I think the shot was like 230-ish yards. I mean, just phenomenal. Getting within that close of 3 antelope is something that's tough to do, especially after they've been harassed for a weekend or about a week at that time from other hunters. And these guys were just, it worked out perfect. So I was super pumped. I called one of my buddies, William Kelly out of Illinois really quick, talked to him, told him about it, and got my game bags, got all my gear together, and I headed out after that antelope. Well, I got up to him, and I will say this 100%, and I mean it. I was not disappointed. I was so jacked that I got my first antelope buck. He's an awesome buck. For those of you who know antelope scores, he scored out at like 61 inches, I think. So nothing crazy, but if that tells you anything, he's 20 inches shy of record buck. So that's, he's a mediocre antelope if you're going by score. But just awesome hunt. Awesome that I got my first buck. I couldn't have been more excited. But as soon as I saw him, I'm like, I don't think Dan would have let me shoot this buck. He would have said, I think we can find better. I could hear it already. So I'm skinning him out. And the whole time I'm skinning him out, I'm like, you know what? I think because those words were sitting in the back of my mind, I think we could have done better. My shot had actually messed the cape up a little bit. I'm just going to get this one Euro mounted. So I didn't get a wall mounter for my first buck because the hide was kind of toast, which I probably would have still done it if the hide would have been good on the brisket area where the bullet impacted. And, anyway, but needless to say, Dan would have said, "Now let's go find another one." And I actually had a plan that day to go check out a spot that Dan had dropped a pin saying he saw some monster bucks over there, but I didn't make it that far because I got so excited on the first thing I saw, and I was on my own. I didn't have anyone there to keep me accountable. So went after him. I got it done. I got an awesome hunt on film. I got my first hunt on the spotter LR that came out this year, which was sweet. And it was all done solo, 3 cameras by myself. Just, you couldn't ask for a better hunt. It was awesome. So anyway, that video will be on lightthefireoutdoors.com. Be on the lookout for that. Super excited to get that video put together here. Great opportunity, great hunt. But my results were less than what I had initially set out or verbally expressed to a buddy that I wanted to do. But the result of it was less than what I probably could have had should I have had my buddy with me. And we went out together and we held each other accountable. And I say all this, and then that's my antelope story. That's my buck story for this year. Again, I couldn't be happier that I got an antelope buck on the ground here in Montana, my home state. Got it done in an afternoon. I mean, all said and done, drive time and everything was like an hour and a half. It was great. And, got some phenomenal meat for the freezer. I think I got 12 pounds of hamburger in there, and I got probably about the same amount, 12 to 15 pounds or so of roast and different things that I know are just going to be amazing table fare. Another side note, my wife and I actually convinced Jess to try some raw antelope meat with me. We were sitting there cutting it up, and I was cutting the roast up and everything. And I sliced a couple really thin pieces off that were basically like sushi, and we counted to 3, and we threw it in our mouth, and you would be totally blown away that meat, you could have passed that off as tuna if you laid it over some rice and called it sushi. It was amazing. No flavor, kind of a cold meat, just like almost like a raw tuna texture, which was pretty cool. But anyway, again, coming back all the way to the footnotes of this podcast episode is that, fellowship is so important in our lives, and fellowship really sets us up to achieve and hit the goals that I feel like God has for us in our lives. And, just like this story, if I would have had Dan with me, I think he would have said, "Hey man, I really think we can do better," and we would have kept driving, and we, very likely could have found something different. It's just part of our lives. The people in the community that we surround ourselves with is so important. And when you surround yourselves with people who you know and you trust and you have faith in and you believe in, maybe they know a little bit more than you about a certain topic, or maybe they've been doing something a little longer than you, or maybe they're just, they're there so you can bounce ideas off of. That we need that community, and we spend so much time in isolation now with social media and all these other things that are just designed to capture and hold our attention and pull us away from community. That it's super hard. I think we've lost a part of that in ourselves, and it rewires us to, have certain issues like depression and all these other things, where the community and spending time with real people and spending time with people with bigger ideas or other ideas than us, it allows us to grow, and it allows us to achieve our goals and keep focused on the bigger goals in life. And, really not having Dan there very well likely kept me from having a bigger buck that day. Like I said, I told Dan I wanted a wall hanger. I don't think he would have let me shoot that one. It ended up not going on the wall, most likely because I ruined the hide. But either way, it just wasn't the caliber of buck that we probably could have gone after, where I would have said, yep, that one's definitely going on the wall. So anyway, like I said, I'm not taking anything away from that hunt. That was sweet. But either way, it works out good. Well, fast forward to the following weekend now. Dan goes out hunting, and he tells me he's going out. I said, "Hey, yeah, I'm going to go try to film my antelope." I had some other neighbors actually. I took them on their first duck hunt, which was awesome. We had 2 new guys that never duck hunted before. I had the opportunity to take them out and guide them on this place, and they ended up getting their first ducks, each of them, which was kind of cool. And I ended up with a limit of ducks here in Montana is 7, and I ended up with 5 of my own. They each ended up with a couple, which was really cool. I think we got some ringneck ducks, some ruddy ducks, got a mallard, had some opportunities at some snow geese. Just really fun hunt in the cold and the snow. But that weekend was just super snowy. So Dan's like, "Hey man, I'm going out antelope hunting. Do you want to go?" I said, "No, I'm going to take these guys duck hunting. You go ahead and go out, and hopefully you get one, man. Good luck." So fast forward a few hours later, Dan texts me this picture of this absolute monster antelope. Just the second I saw it, it dwarfed mine. And I was like, gosh dang it, you've got to be kidding me. Of course you get this giant buck when I'm not with you, right? And, not out of jealousy, but out of like, gosh, I should have waited till the weekend and gone antelope hunting. I should have waited to go with Dan. And so anyway, I obviously call him up. I hear the story, and he's like, "Dude, you should have been there." He said, "This one was big. There was another one that was bigger that you would have gotten if you would have been here." And I was like, "Okay." And he films everything too. So he's got a little digital camera he carries with him that does a really good job. And he filmed this thing. So he filmed this huge herd of antelope that he ran into out on this place. And it was actually the place that I was heading to. But I stopped early because I didn't have him to say, "No, keep going." I stopped early, and I got my antelope when I could have been heading right to the place where he got this one, plus the bigger one that was out there. And anyway, he gets this other one on film. He pulls up the video and shows me, and it was just an absolute tank. It was twice as big as his. I feel like he was just an absolute monster. And, it just kind of shows, again, you wait for it, you take the time, you go with a buddy, you have that fellowship with you, the return can be so much greater. If you take the time to be patient, if you take the time to bounce ideas off people, if you take the time to be part of a community and rely on your community to keep you guided, keep you focused, keep you on those goals. My goal is a wall hanger antelope. I've got a wall hanger antelope on the ground, but it's going up as a euro. If I would have waited for him, there would have been zero question. I would have had one of the biggest antelope I could have possibly ever taken in my life hanging on my wall here in a few months, so the taxidermist was done with it. So congrats to Dan. He got an absolute tank of an antelope. It was awesome. There was another one that's out there. Hopefully he's there next year, and we'll set sights to go after him again next year. But just an awesome antelope. So again, guys, part of, this story is obviously about antelope hunting, but the other part of it is about fellowship and having those people in your lives and finding those people in your lives and taking time to foster and put time and energy into those relationships in your life with people who keep you on the right track, who keep you focused, and who keep you pointed in the right direction. This hunt again, I could have had a buck that was twice as big, probably gone record book. If I would have taken some time and just, fostered that relationship, gone out with my buddy and had him there with me to point me in the right direction. And I didn't. So I got the results were a little bit smaller than, horn size smaller, but that goes for anything in our lives. How many times have you gone out and tried doing something solo and you just give up on it because you don't have the encouragement maybe you needed to keep going, or that person to keep pushing you to stay side by side. I don't know if you guys watch a lot of History Channel stuff, but I was actually watching a show the other day of I Shouldn't Be Alive, and there was an episode where these people had to abandon a boat because it was sinking in a storm, and they get on a life raft. Well, two of the people end up surviving out of the whole group that was in there, but they had each other, and they both from the beginning kind of set up. You could tell they were both a little bit mentally stronger than the other people, but they knew that about each other, and they recognized it, and they used each other to keep pushing on, and it ultimately survived, a situation where they very well likely could have died or should have died with the amount of dehydration and lack of food and everything they had. It's just, there's so much strength in community, and even if that community is one other person in your life. I had a roommate in college. His name's Scotty, and to this day, one of the most influential people that I've ever had the opportunity to meet in my life. And I'll tell you right now, I've never been more focused in my life on what's truly important as to the time I had to spend with him, and I think back on that a lot because it helps keep me grounded a little bit, helps me reflect on things a little deeper. My wife and I, we definitely complete each other out as far as, she's got strengths that I don't have. I've got strengths that she doesn't have. And we're constantly on a daily basis, keeping each other in check or helping each other out with certain situations, or she's talking to me about situations she ran into that day, or I'm talking to her about things I ran into that day. And the difference in perspectives keeps us grounded, keeps us moving forward, keeps us to making the right decisions, or keep us to, just ultimately achieving the goals that we have on our own. And it also, you develop goals together, and you can both keep each other accountable in making the right decisions and reaching the goals that you have and all that good stuff. So the Bible tells us a lot about community, and one of my favorite absolute all-time verses is to go to, and I'm sure you've probably heard it before. It's actually Proverbs 27:17. And it says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another person." And this is just, it's 100%. I mean, if I'm having a weekday and you've got, I've got a buddy who can just come in and give you a little bit of encouragement, that makes you sharper. If maybe you're making the wrong decisions, maybe you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, or maybe you're going down a path you shouldn't be going. Those people in your lives that have your best interests in mind and who you kind of just rely on, maybe they've got different strengths, or maybe they see things differently than you. They can guide you back to the path you should be on. Again, it's about becoming the sharpest person you can be in this life, mentally, spiritually, physically. And if you don't have that accountability and you don't have that partnership and that, the fellowship in your life to keep you guided on that path, you're up to your own devices. And a lot of times, we've got a lot of things weighing in on us. The day is the social media, there's all kinds of things that just impact us constantly, nonstop on a daily basis that can guide you in 1,000 different directions. You don't even know which way is right. That's what those people in your lives are for, those real relationships, that real time you spend with these people in your life. That's what they're there for. And it helps keep you sharp, and it helps keep you in the right direction. Another one, 1 Thessalonians 5:11, therefore encourage one another and build up one another. That's extremely important. Part of our lives in today's day and age, we're just bombarded with negative. And a lot of it, if you haven't watched it, by the way, My wife and I took some time and we watched, I think it's called The Social Dilemma. It's on Netflix. It's a documentary, but it's about the social media impact of our lives right now, and kind of, it's basically an experiment at this point. Still, it's relatively new in our lives. This last decade, it's gone exponential, but we have so much negative in our lives, and it's because the types of things, and watch this documentary. I'm not going to get too much into it, but basically the way these things are designed, it's computer algorithms, and the things that get you to react are the things that impact you the most. And it's the things that it will keep throwing at you, because it's basically like giving a dog a treat. When you tell the dog to sit and it sits. When you click something, you're telling that dog, good boy. And it's like giving the dog a treat when the dog sits, because it thinks it did the right thing to you. And that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to capture your attention and keep your attention. So either way, negativity spreads like crazy on these things, because guess what triggers you the most? Guess what gets your heart racing the most? Guess what, gives you that thump in the chest, makes you want to react, makes you want to comment, makes you want to like, makes you want to do whatever. It's usually something that triggers you. That's what these things are for. And I think part of the lack of personal interaction and the lack of fellowship we have in our lives now, because we're getting so isolated, we're lacking encouragement. We're lacking people saying, hey man, I believe in you. Get after it. Go after it. I know you can do this. I know you've got this. Or, hey man, why don't you stop doing that, dude? Come on, let's go this way, or let's start doing this. Or, hey man, how can I help you with something? I see you're struggling. We don't have a lot of that anymore. It's all fake. It's all pretend. And we're really losing out on some of the best years and some of the best opportunities in our lives because of it. And again, it just makes it, fellowship is so important in our lives, and we've really got to get out there and start doing these things and making these relationships and spending time and energy here, and really ultimately striving to achieve the goals that you've set out for yourself. Because I know every single one of us has goals we've set. I know we've all got places we'd like to be. Maybe there's a place at work you'd like to be, a position you want to take. Maybe there's, something you've got in mind that you're just trying to achieve. Get people in your life that will guide you and help you to reach those goals. That's so important. And just keep you on the right path and keep your heart and mind settled in the right place. That's the other thing with it is, again, people with different ideas and different opinions and different, outlooks on everything can keep you rooted in the place you need to be, which is just super, super important. But anyway, again, 1 Thessalonians 5:11, encourage one another, build each other up. It's so important. If you got someone in your life, be sure to make someone. I was just listening to give a shout out to the guys who have the Working Class Bow Hunter podcast. I was just listening to theirs with Mark Drury the other day. And he said, a secret to a long, happy marriage, or somewhere to this effect, is doing something that makes your spouse happy every day. How many relationships nowadays are ending in divorce or things like that? I mean, it's absolutely insane. It's somewhere in the ballpark of 50%, which is outstanding, not in a good way. But what if every single one of those relationships, that was their goal every day? Make my spouse happy in one way today. Do something that will put a smile on their face once today. That kind of stuff. And that goes for everything in your life. Be that smile. Be the voice or the sense of reason or whatever that puts a smile on someone's face today. Encourage somebody, build them up, don't tear them down. That's what life's all about. And again, as iron sharpens iron, just like you put a smile on your face, guess what? That creates a contagious effect, and it goes into someone else's life. And at the end of the day, the more positive we are, the more goal-oriented we are. Say that 10 times fast. I think we're going to get a lot farther, and we've got a lot of hope in our life still. We've got a lot of hope in our society and, this great country we have the opportunity to live in here in the United States. We've got so much hope here and so many good things that can still come out of everything that we're doing. We just don't see it anymore because we're trapped in a negative isolation state. And we don't take enough time to listen to each other, try to sharpen each other, try to listen to each other, and try to guide each other towards shooting that big buck, towards saying, hey, pass on that small stuff. Don't let that small stuff bother you. Don't sweat the small stuff. Let's go after the big one. Let's make something positive happen. Let's make a really big impact here. And that's what it's all about, guys. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Proverbs 27:17, just super important. So that's where I'm going to leave you guys off. I heard the wife just get home. Gonna go downstairs. We got some dinner to eat. Maybe we'll have some antelope tonight. Be sure to keep a check out at lightthefireoutdoors.com. We have all the videos coming in. You're going to see the video of the hunt I just told you about for my first buck antelope, which was awesome. I'm going to get that edited up. That's going to be up on the website here soon. We've got another antelope video from last year I want to put up, kind of capitalizing on the antelope season here, and all kinds of stuff going up there as well. We're going to restart the blog program we had on there as well, getting some of those things up. So just constant sources of encouragement, some cool videos if you want to, burn some time at work on your break or whatever. over, check out one of our hunting videos. And then winter's here. We still have some beanies left from last year. We made some Light the Fire Outdoors beanies. And as a reminder to everybody, 30% of all of our stuff that you buy from lightthefireoutdoors.com goes to conservation, Outdoors Reach Ministry, and the veterans community. We do something for 10% goes to veterans, 10% goes to conservation support somewhere in the United States, and then obviously towards ministry support as well. 3 things that are very near and dear to our hearts. So we've got some beanies left on there. We got black and gray. They're an awesome way to keep your head warm during this winter. I know we got about 12 inches of snow on the ground over the last week here in Montana. A lot of other places getting snow. So get on there, grab a beanie, support conservation, support ministry, and support the veteran community as well. And as always, guys, thank you for listening to the Praying and Slaying podcast. Make sure on whatever platform that you listen to us on, you go out and give us a like or a positive rating, and that helps us out, helps keep us relevant, helps people find us, find the encouragement that maybe they get through this podcast as well. And as always, guys, God bless. Keep praying and slaying. Get out and vote. It's important right now. It's always going to be important, so get out and exercise that right. And we love you guys. Have a great, great, great day. Thanks again, everybody, for listening to the Praying and Slaying podcast. If you like what you hear on Praying and Slaying, be sure to give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform that you listen to us on, and be sure to check us out at www.lightthefireoutdoors.com, where you can find all the episodes as well as other videos and other outdoor faith-based content. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Light the Fire Outdoors. Thanks again for listening. We look forward to getting you on the next one.